In this video, I will explain 4 different types of exit statements. Those are ExitAction, ExitActionIteration, ExitTest, and ExitGlobalIteration. So there are 4 different types of statements, which are exit statements, that I will explain in this video. So in case if you are wondering who is making this video, so my name is MD Shahajada Imran. MD Shahajada Imran. That is my legal name. I also have a nickname, that is Lemon. That is my nickname. So you know who is making this video. Now, before I explain those 4 exit statements, this is prerequisite that we understand what is a global iteration and what is a local iteration. So I have the UFT is open. So UFT, this is a test. This is a test. Test starts here, test ends here. And we have 3 actions: action 1, action 2, and action 3. See, in a test we could have unlimited number of actions. So when we say global iteration, that means how many times the entire test will iterate. If the global iteration is 3, that means the entire test, the test starts here, test ends here, and test will be executed 3 times. So if I go to the data, so there are 4 sheets. This is global sheet, this is a local sheet, and this is local sheet. So this action 1 is local to this action 1 action. So this is the sheet name. Sheet name is action 1, that is local action, that is local to this action. And this is action 2. This is action 2, that is the sheet name. This is the sheet name action 2, that is tied to this action. And this is action 3, that tied to this action. So there are 3 action, has 3 local data sheet. This is a local data sheet for this action. This is another local data sheet that is for this action, and this is another local data sheet that is for this action, and this is global data sheet that is for the entire test. So if there are 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, see there are 3 rows. Since there are 3 rows in the global data sheet, so the maximum iteration for the entire test is 3 times. So the entire test that starts here, ends here, will be iterated 3 times. So that is global iteration. The local iteration, if I go, so there is no data. That means there will be only 1 iteration for the local data sheet. So this action itself can be iterated only 1 times. And this action, if I go to action 2, this is action 2, and what is the corresponding local data sheet? This one, action 2. So this local data sheet has 3 rows, 1 row, 2 row, and 3 row. There are 3 rows. So this local data sheet can be iterated maximum 3 times, or maybe and then third action, this is the local data sheet. This is the local data sheet, and since there are no rows, no data in the row, so therefore this is default. 1 time it will be iterated. So in this particular scenario, so if I right click, so this is the maximum. Now we have to check what is the setting. So if I go to action 1, right click on it, I clicked right, I did the right click. Now this is displayed. Now action call properties, if I go click on action call properties, I clicked, it says run. How many times the test will iterate? 1 iteration only. That is the default settings. So this is for local iteration settings I am checking. The local iteration settings, there are 3 options: run 1 iteration only, run on all rows, run from A to B. So this one, action 1, will be iterated only 1 time. Now I will be checking the second action. I right click on it and click on action properties. It says run on all rows. And second iteration, how many rows are there? Let me check. On the second local datasheet, there are 3 rows. So this action will be iterated 3 times. So when and third action, this is third action, this is third action's local datasheet. I right click on the third action, click on action properties. It says run one iteration only, so cancel it. So since there are 3 actions, first action will be iterated 1 time, second action will be iterated 3 times, and third action will be iterated 1 times, and that is for local iteration, and that's from starts here and ends here. And for the global iteration, the entire test will be iterated 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So that is global iteration, and that is local iteration. Global iteration means that how many times the entire action will be iterated. Now, how I can check the global iteration settings? Action iteration settings. I can right click on it, click on action call properties. But for the global is for entire test. So that I can check from here, files, settings, and run, and it says run on all rows. If this one was selected, then only one time, only the entire test would iterate only 1 time. Since this one selected, the entire iteration will be iterated 3 times. The entire test will be iterated 3 times. So the global iteration is 3. There are 3 rows, and setup says run on all rows. So global iteration will be 3 times. That means the entire test that starts here, ends here, entire test will be iterated 3 times. Entire test will be executed 3 times. During one global iteration, this action will be executed 1 time, this action will be executed 3 times, and this action will be executed 1 time. This action has no data, and also in the setting says run only 1 iteration. Therefore, the first action will be executed 1 time. Second action has 3 rows of data, and if I check the settings, it says run on all rows. So the second iteration, second action will be iterated 3 times. So that is local iteration. And this one also, this local datasheet has no data, and the setting, it says run 1 iteration only. So what the final solution, what is the maximum the execution will happen for 1 global iteration action? This one will be executed 1 time, this one will be executed 3 times, and this one will be executed 1 time. So that is the setting right now. Now let me see what I'm explaining. I'm explaining global data sheet versus local data sheet. Local data sheet. So global data sheet versus local data sheet. That is what I am explaining. So in this particular scenario, in the global data sheet has 3 rows. Therefore, the entire script will be executed 3 times. And for each time, action 1 will be executed 1, action 2 will be executed 3 times. Those are local iterations, and action 3 will be executed 1 times. Now we understood what is global iteration, what is local iteration, what is global data sheet, what is local data sheet. Now I see what is the content. So if I double click on action 1, I double click. Action 1, on the line number 5, there is one print statement. That is, it will print, this is action 1. If I go to action 2, double click, action 2, I delete this line. I deleted previously. This is non-relevant. So if action 2, if the action 2 has one line on line number 4, that will capture the row. This is action 2, that will capture this one and store in this variable. That variable will go here and it will be printed. It will print this is local iteration number for this row 1, for this row 2, for this row 3. That number will be here of action 2, and print the value also. For first row this is the value, for second row this is the value, this is the value, this is the value, for third row this is the value. So now we have seen what are the code. There are 3 lines of code. One line that will capture this number 1 in the first iteration 1, the second iteration 2, and the third iteration 3. This number will be there, this 1 2 3, this number will be here 3 times 3 numbers, and that will be printed on this print statement. Also the value will be printed. So there are 3 lines. I explained what are those lines. And the third action has this is action 1, I mean action 3. So this is line number 6. There is only one print statement, that is this is action 3. So action 1, action 2, and action 3. The main topic is explaining exit statements. Before I go, I will be running the entire test. What will happen? It will iterate 3 times. The entire test will be executed 3 times. For each entire test execution, action 1 will be executed 1 time, action 2 will be executed 3 times, and action 3 will be executed 1 time for each entire test execution, and the entire text will be executed 3 times as based on these settings and the data. Now I will be running to see running before using any exit statement. This is a clean script I will be running, and then I will explain the exit statements. So I will be running it. I run the script, so the script will run based on the iteration settings. This one is open, so close it. Now if I go to output, since each action has print statements, this will, so for the first iteration, it executed this line from action 1, and this 3 from action 2, because that action 2 iterated 3 times. That action 2 iterated 3 times, and this one from action 3. So action 1 printed this line, action 2 printed these 3 lines, this 3, this 1, this 2, and this 3, and this from action 3. So action 1, action 2, action 3, and the entire things for one global iteration. Since there are 3 data in 3 rows, so it printed 3 times. This is 1 time for the first row, and then from here to here this is second time, and from here to here this is third time. So 3 times it executed the entire test, and for each time, first action executed 1, second action executed 3 times. This is first time, second action execution, this is second time, and this is third time. So second action executed 3 times, and then third action executed only 1 time. Now that we got the clean execution and we see what have been printed, now I will be explaining what are those exit statements, which is the main topic of this video. To explain the exit statement. So first I will explain exit action. exit action. Exit action. That is what I will be explaining. So exit action is a statement that will exit from the current action and process to the next action regardless of the iteration attributes. That is the definition. So if I go to action 2 example, and if I click on action 2, in the action 2 and the global iteration I change, global iteration settings I change, and I say run only one time, run one iteration only. So the entire test will be executed only one time. From start to end, the entire test will be executed one time. Now let's see, in the action 2, this is the action 2, this is the local data sheet of action 2. So local data sheet has 3 rows. So I open the action 2, I open the action 2. Now if I say exit action, exit action, exit action on line number 1, then it will exit from the action 2 at line number 1. So if I run, the script will execute, the entire script will execute one time, because in the setting I have set it that way. And then action 1 will be executed one time, because there is no code, no exit statement, and there is only one print statement in there. And then action 2, I wrote this exit action statement. Therefore, at line number 2, it will exit from the action. It will exit from the action 2. Therefore, nothing of this executed for first iteration, second iteration, and third iteration. So that says it will exit from the action regardless of iteration attributes. So whether regardless of these iteration attributes, it will exit from the action and process to the next iteration. That means it will process to this action. So only whatever code is written there, this line will be executed, and whatever code is written there, that line also be executed or printed, and whatever written there will not be printed, because at the line number 1 it is taking the exit from the particular action. So now if I run it, then I will see only 2 lines printed. I run it. So if I go to output console, I see there are 2 lines printed. This is action 1 that printed from this action, and this is action 3 that printed from this action. Nothing printed from this action because at the line number 1 the script exited from that action, therefore nothing below printed, and regardless of the iteration, and nothing printed from any of this. It exited from the entire action. Now, since I have give hands-on explanation, an example of exit action, the definition is exit action statement will exit from the current action regardless of iteration attributes. So current action is action 2, and it will be exiting from action 2 regardless of, it doesn't matter how many iterations left or remaining. The moment it exited from the action, it will process to the next action. It will process to the next action. So that's the definition. Also I give hands-on example. So I delete this one. So remove this one. Now I will be explaining what is action, exit action iteration. Exit action iteration. ExitActionIteration. ExitActionIteration will exit from the current iteration of the action. That is the definition. So action 1 has one print statement, action 3 has one print statement, and action 2 has few lines of code. Now it has 3 iterations: iteration 1, iteration 2, and iteration 3. What I want to use, I want to say my script that the moment when iteration 2 appears, exit from that iteration and process to the iteration 3. So I will be, first I will get the iteration count that is here itself. So iteration count, I got it, and now I will be using if statement. If iteration number equals to iteration number equal to 2, if iteration number equal to 2, if iteration number is 2, then exit the iteration. Exit action iteration. Exit action iteration. What it means, if the iteration number 2, then it will be exiting from the iteration and process to the next iteration. So this line will be printed, this line Shahajada, that will not be printed, and then Imran will be printed too. So in this scenario, since it says exit action iteration, it will not be exiting from the entire action, it will be exiting from the current iteration of the action. So action 2 has 3 iterations, and I am saying exiting from iteration 2 only. So iteration 1 will be printed, iteration 3 also will be printed, only iteration 2 will not be printed, because before printing, before this line, the script gets exited from that iteration. So in the console, what I will see in the console, I will see one line from this action and also one line from this action, and from here they are supposed to print 3 my first name, middle name, and last name, but it will not be printing my middle name. It will only print first name and last name, because I said when the iteration number 2 it exits from the script. When the iteration number is 2, then it exited from the script. So now I will be running and see what happens. Console, nothing is there. I printed. So since I printed this data in the console, this line came from action 1 and this line came from action 2, but action 2 has 3 local iterations. Out of 3 local iterations, first iteration printed this and third iteration printed this, second iteration did not print it, and this one from the third action, from this action. So that's what it's exit action iteration. So definition is exiting from the current iteration of the action and process to the next iteration. So it's exiting from the current iteration of the, it's exiting from this iteration and process to the next iteration of the current action. So that is this definition. Now I will say action. Okay, now I will go the third one, exit text. Exit test. So it will be exiting from the test. So what is the test? this is the test. Test starts here and ends here. Anywhere I write this exit test statement, it will exit from the current test regardless of the iteration attributes. So global iteration has 3, though in the setting I said run only one time, but the maximum is 3. So if I go to the settings, run, and I say okay fine, run on all rows, and the global iteration, in the global data sheet there are 3 rows, therefore the maximum global iteration is 3. So the entire test will be executed 3 times, and each time execution, first action will be executed once, second action will be executed 3 times, because second action, second local data sheet has 3 rows, the maximum, and the third action will be executed 1 time. Now in the console there is not, I will be deleting everything, so there is nothing. Now if I run, the entire test will be executed 3 times, and for each time, this one 1, this one 3, and this one 1. Let's see. Run it. Yes, so it printed, the printing is ends. Now if I open up, I will see it printed 3 times. This is the one entire script execution. During first global iteration, this one printed from action 1, from here to here, printed from action 2. In action 2 itself printed 3 times, from the first iteration this 2, this from the second iteration this 2, and the third iteration this 2, and this is the third action, and that is for global 1 iteration. For the global second iteration, from here to here printed. This is for the global iteration and global second iteration, and from here to here the global third iteration. The global 1 iteration is from here to here. The entire test executed 3 times. Now if I use ExitTest on state, here I say ExitTest, ExitTest, what will happen? ExitTest statement will exit from the test regardless of iteration or action attributes. So regardless of if I go here and I wrote down that ExitTest statement on action 2, therefore action 1, whatever written on the first global iteration, action 1 will be printed. The first global iteration, action 2's first local iteration, it says print ExitTest. Therefore remaining anything will not be printed. Remaining whatever remains, if I go remaining local iterations of the action 2, and then third iteration, third action from one global iteration, and the second global iteration, the third global iteration, nothing will be printed. So on what will print in the console, it will print only whatever written on action 1. One line will be printed. Let me see. If I run it, it's only printed 1 line. It did not print a second actions, any iteration, third action of the first global iteration, and nothing from the second global iteration, and nothing from the third global iteration. So the definition is ExitTest will exit from the test regardless of action, action iteration, and global iteration attributes. That is the definition. So I gave the definition. I also gave a hands-on example. Now I will be explaining what is exit global iteration. Exit global iteration. exit global iteration. So if I do not have this one, this exit test, and if I run it, it will run 3 global times. Since the global iteration is 3 times, if I go to the datasheet again, and if I check the global, there are 3 rows, so the entire test will be iterated 3 times. So global iteration is 3, maximum global iteration is 3. So I will be writing a code on action 1 itself, and I will say I need to count, I need to get this count number, global iteration count. So iteration count, iteration number, not count, iteration number, data table dot, this is global sheet, so I have to write global sheet, and then dot, and I will be getting row, get current row. So this will get this current row number 1, 2, 3. What I am saying that if the iteration number, the global sheet's iteration number is 2, then exit global iteration. Exit global iteration. So exit global iteration. So what will happen now? Now in the global sheet there are 3 rows. In the setting also I said run all 3, run on all rows. So basically the entire test that starts here, ends here, entire test supposed to iterate 3 times, entire test supposed to execute 3 times, and for each time this one supposed to execute 1, and this one supposed to execute 3, and this one supposed to execute 1. Those are local iterations. And in action 1, this one, action 1, in action 1 I said if the global iteration number is 2, then exit from that global iteration on the line number 4. So whatever written below will not be executed. So what will happen if I run this script? So there are 3 times the entire thing supposed to print, but it will only print 2 times. The entire script supposed to run 3 times, but it will only run 2 times. First time and the third time. Second time it will not execute because on the first action itself it is getting exited from that global iteration. Let's see what happens. So it will, if we go output, nothing is there, so it will print only 2 times the entire script instead of 3 times, and it will not execute the second global iteration. I run, I click on the run button, it's running. Execution ends. If I go, I can see only 2 times executed. The first global iteration that starts here, ends here. It's the first line printed from action 1, then the remaining lines until this from here to here printed from action 2, and from action 3 it printed this line, and it happened 2 times only, 1 time and 2 times. It's supposed to happen 3 times, but because of the exit global iteration exit, it only printed 2 times. So I have given and the definition is global exit iteration exits from the current global iteration of the test and process to the next global iteration. So these are global iterations. It will be exiting from this global iteration and process to the next global iteration, process to the next global iteration. So that is the definition, and also I gave a hands-on example of this statement. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you will be enjoying this video. Alright, bye.